Today on the Dirty Shop, I'm going to show you how to make one of these into a usable knife. And then I'm going to give that knife away to one of the people who comments below this video. So please leave a comment, subscribe if you haven't already, and thumbs up, a nice like is always appreciated. And then I will be giving this knife away to one of the people who comments below this video. I will have my email address down there, dirtyshopdiy@gmail.com. And then when I do the giveaway, I will do another video with the giveaway in it, and I will have my email address there. So if you win, make sure to contact me on that email address, and I'll do my best to get a hold of you, but make sure you contact me if you see that video that you've won, and then I'll get this knife sent out to you. I am not the best knife maker in the world, but I do a pretty good job, and hey, it's free. Who could complain? So this is your chance to win this cool knife, and you need to be over 18. I believe that I can't send you a knife if you're under 18. There's probably some sort of crazy laws about that. So here we go. I'm going to show you how to do this into a cool knife.
Warning, this video may contain scenes of extreme untidiness. Viewer discretion is advised.
So the first thing you need to do, if you're going to make a knife out of a circular saw blade, is you need to make sure that this circular saw blade that you have picked is going to be hard enough. The ones with the carbide teeth on the outside are usually not. They usually have some sort of a softer steel on the inside, which is made to hold teeth, not necessarily to cut. You notice that this blade I have is not carbide tipped, so it is my hope that this will be hard enough steel to make a knife. And to figure that out, I'm going to do two things. Excuse me. The first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to do a grind test on the grinder, which will tell me some things, and then I'm going to cut a piece of this off, and I'm going to heat it up until it's no longer magnetic, and I'm going to dunk it in water or oil and see if it gets hard enough that it will make a decent knife. So we're going to go and we're going to cut a slice off of this, we're going to heat it up, quench it, and see what we get. All right, so we have heated this to where it wasn't magnetic, and then we dunked it in the water. And to test if this is going to be hard enough to make a knife, if it's a hardenable steel, we're going to take our file and we're going to try and file that piece that we hardened. So when I do this, the file kind of just skates over. You can hear it. All right, and that's the part that we hardened. And if I go to this other side where we didn't get it hardened, you can hear the difference in the way the file sounds on it. And you can't really see it in the video, but the file is cutting here and not cutting there. So let's see it. Not. All right, the difference is really hard to tell. But if you could see here, hopefully, on the tips of this, you can see where it cut those tips when I filed it. And down here is, my lighting is kind of bad today, I'm sorry. Down here is where I filed it, with where it was hardened, and it didn't cut it. So we know that this is hard enough to make a knife with. This works for most of the high carbon steels and things like that, stainless steels, and this testing method works pretty well for those, but it's no guarantee. And I did say I was going to do another test. I was going to grind test this, but I don't see much point. If I do it this way, I know it gets hard enough, so I'm going to go with that route. You could put a knife steel on the grinder, and the sparks will sometimes show you some interesting features about what you're grinding, but it's pretty unpredictable. If you have a known piece of material and you're trying to match it, sometimes you can do that. But otherwise, this method works pretty good to be able to tell if your steel is going to be hard enough to make a knife out of. So now we're going to design our knife, get it on that blade, and cut it out. Now that I've got my basic shape cut out and done, I've smoothed it. I used a belt sander is almost essential when you're making knives. It's really, really nice. You can make an entire knife with like a drill gun and an angle grinder. And I think I made my first one pretty much that way. But it's so much nicer if you can have some sort of belt sander. A lot of people have these big like 4-inch ones or a 6-inch one back there like you saw me using for doing this. And especially when it comes to grinding your flats and your edges on your blades, it's really nice to have a belt sander because it's a flat surface. Once again, you could do it on an angle grinder, but it's just not as easy. So now I've got my shape cut out. This is going to be kind of a skinning knife. As you can kind of see, it's got a big fat blade on it with a good radius, so I can get in there and do some skinning or something like that. I just kind of like the way it looks anyways. So I've got the handle, the shape that I want, and now I'm going to go and put the first part of the flats on the blades. I'm not going to get it all the way to sharp yet, but I'm going to get the blades up to where I know where the blade basically is. Wanted to take a quick moment here to give you a little tip on grinding a blade and getting a smoother grind line. I actually messed up on this other side, but I'm not the best in the world, obviously. But to get this straighter line, this grind line, and have it be fairly clean and nice there, you don't want to grind your blade in a back and forth type of motion. You don't want to do it this way in smaller bits. You want to take it in longer, cleaner strokes because it's easier to stay straight when you do that. So you start on one edge and kind of go smooth to the other edge. If you stop whilst grinding, if you go to a spot and stop somewhere in the middle of the blade, it'll grind slightly deeper there than other areas, and it'll be harder to get that clean, smooth grind line. So I'm going to continue grinding this and see if I can finish it off. And then we'll move on to the hardening point. Okay, now we're ready to harden our knife. We put this Rutland's furnace cement on the blade to keep the sides from cooling too fast, and then allows the edge to cool quickly. And we're going to heat that edge up with our oxyacetylene torch here until it is not magnetic. That's the best I could hope for since I don't know what kind of steel it is. I did test this on another knife, and I dipped it in water after I heated it up, and it caused the blade to crack here at the tip. There was a crack along here, and when I pushed on it, it just broke off. You can see, it just broke off. So I made it cooled a little bit too quickly for my purposes, although I did get the nice soft back and the hard edge, and it was definitely a hard edge. It was holding up very well to for regular use. So I'm going to do this one with the torch, and I'm going to dip it in oil. I keep my oil in this old 5-gallon soda keg because it's nice and long, and I can drop my blades straight into there and get a good straight plunge on for hardening them, and hopefully I'll turn out a decent blade. Okay, here's my blade. I've hardened it, hopefully. It's always a question. I didn't hear any cracking or pinging, which is nice. And I'm going to test. The edge still looks straight, which is nice. And I'm going to test it by sliding this old file over it to see how it performs. If I can find a spot that's not too built up with furnace cement. And it definitely got hard. That file is not cutting at all, which is pretty good. So I'm going to knock all this junk off of here now. And hopefully get ourselves a decent blade. So there you could definitely see where the line is going to be. You can see where the cement ended and the hardness of the blade starts. Not really knowing what this steel is always a problem when you're working with a knife blade or like some sort of scrap material. So since it's an older saw blade, I'm going to treat it as though it was a plain carbon steel. It may be a high-speed steel, which means I totally tempered it wrong. maybe an air hardening steel. But since it took a good temper and this piece does not appear to be cracked, I'm going to call it probably some sort of regular carbon steel like 1095 or 1080, something like that. So now that I've hardened it, I want to take this back a little bit, make it a little bit softer because I don't want it to be brittle. So I keep this old toaster oven that I picked up at a thrift store for doing that, and I'm going to, they want, it's said that you're supposed to do it twice at 450. And so I can't really do 450 because my toaster oven goes to 400. So I'm going to bring it up to about 375, 400. And I'm going to let it sit in there for about a half an hour or an hour, and then I'll take it out and let it cool, and then I'll put it back in and do it again. And we'll see if we can get the temper to be just a little softer on this blade and maybe a little more durable. This video ended up being really long because I wanted to get a lot of detail into it, so I'm splitting the video in half, and you'll be able to see how I did the sheath and the handle on this knife in part 2. And so click this link right over here and it will take you to the next video, and you'll be able to see how I did the other parts of this, and the details for when I'm going to give this knife away are going to be on the end of that video as well. So I appreciate you watching. You know, hit that thumbs up, hit that subscribe button over there, check out the next video, and see how I finish this sucker off. See you next time.